Folks, we are back on the W.A.D.E Concept presented by The Ring Magazine with breaking news today. Well, it's about a day old now, but still breaking news. Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn are set to rematch, and it just got announced, so we have to talk about it. The breakdown, let's go.
He is the star of W.A.D.E Concept.
All right, so here it is from The Ring Magazine. Breaking. The Ring Magazine has learned Sella completed the deal for the highly anticipated Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn rematch on November 15th in Tottenham Stadium. The event will be presented as The Ring Unfinished Business. Not going to lie, they kind of did finish the business the first time around. I mean, Chris Eubank Jr. won, but it was a great fight. It was probably fight of the year or one of the fights of the year for what we've seen this year in 2025. But that being said, it was interesting, and there was always supposed to be a rematch clause, so we're running it back. Also, the event will be promoted by Sella and sponsored by Riyadh Season and The Ring Magazine. Here is the article. First it was off, then on, then off again. Now the rematch between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn is officially back on. The Ring has learned the deal to see them run it back from their April 26th showdown was completed through Sella on Tuesday. They will have approximately 3 months to prepare for their sequel to take place on November 15th in Tottenham Stadium in the United Kingdom. All right, so this is interesting because we didn't know we were going to get this. It looked like because they were originally supposed to have the rematch in September, and that was going to be set in stone. That was how it was going to go. And then Chris Eubank Jr.'s team, I guess, wasn't on board, or he wasn't on board, and they couldn't get the deal done. So it looked like we were moving on. You know, Conor Benn staying at 147, potentially looking to fight big fights at 147. Ryan Garcia out there, who knows? And then for Chris Eubank Jr., we didn't really know. Is he going to fight again? Is he going to hang him up? Is he going to look to move back to 168 and try to compete at a higher level there? And we just didn't get any answers. You know, we really did not know. So having this thing back on is great. Like, I wouldn't have minded if they moved on from it, but this is great. You know, rematch, a highly contested fight the first time around, tons of drama leading into the fight, and, you know, we do have to talk about a lot of that. It's not said here. In fact, on the website, at the end of the article, it says that it is unclear if the rematch will once again take place at 160 pounds, but it's believed that the weigh-in terms will remain the same. This is going to be obviously something very controversial for people, because the first fight was already controversial. A lot of people thinking Chris Eubank Jr. shouldn't still be fighting at 160 pounds because it looks like it's a pretty tough weight cut for him. And then because this is not a natural 160-pounder in Conor Benn, then you also have the rehydration clause from the first fight. That was a massive controversy, so much so that Chris Eubank Jr. actually missed weight. It was a half of a pound or a half of a pound. I'm not exactly sure the number, but he missed, and it cost him $500,000. That was insane the first time around. And again, the rehydration clause makes it very difficult on, I guess he'll be 35, maybe 36-year-old Chris Eubank, who clearly is not a natural 160 anymore. But then again, you have Conor Benn coming up from 147. He's not supposed to be fighting at 160, and it's just it's a weird fight. It is. As far as like trying to make it, it's an odd one. But I can't lie to you if I want to see it, right? I do want to see the rematch. I thought both men looked great in the first fight. I thought Chris Eubank Jr. pulled out a gutsy performance and was able to withstand some nasty, I mean, earth-shattering punches from Conor Benn. People talking about his power not carrying up to 160. It may not against other people, but against Chris Eubank Jr., he was lighting him up with some of those shots. And Eubank not only weathered the storm, but hit him back with even more big shots and then outclassed him on the way to a victory. So it is up to Conor Benn to change the tide here in the rematch. And I'm going to go ahead and say this, because it's at 160, because I've now seen the first fight, and the skill gap was not as big as I thought it would potentially be if Conor Benn was going to be outmatched. He was outclassed, outboxed in that fight, but the skill gap wasn't bigger than the amount that Conor Benn can make up for you know, maybe a better approach, maybe a more technical approach, a more set-up approach, because throughout the fight, all we watched was Conor Benn throw hammers. There was not a lot of setup punching from Conor Benn. There was a lot of hooks, right hands, straight punches, jab right hand, but there wasn't a lot of feint jab right hand. Wasn't a lot of double jab right hand. Wasn't a lot of jab work really in total from Conor Benn the first time around. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know if we would be able to see much different from Chris Eubank Jr. in the rematch. I don't know that there's much that he can show us in a rematch that we didn't already see from him. And I'm not, he won the fight. He could probably do what he did in the first fight and still win, but I just think that the ceiling is kind of what we saw from Chris Eubank Jr. I don't know that he has much more to push past what we saw, or I don't know if he didn't have his greatest night of fighting. He probably could have boxed more and traded less, if we want to say, you know, what's a more safe route for Chris Eubank Jr., and one that, again, him being the more technically skilled, it looked like in the first fight, and that's how he won. Maybe in a rematch, he's more safe and stays behind his jab and doesn't look to engage as much and plays more defense and, you know, drags out a decision that way. Definitely could be the case, or just outboxes Conor Benn and doesn't take as many risks, because he took some unnecessary risks. I mean, I don't know if you even want to call them unnecessary, because those things needed to happen. For Conor Benn to get stopped in his tracks a little bit, and for Chris Eubank Jr. to gain some respect and be able to have some offense, he needed to stop the wild swings. He needed to stop the big-time power of Conor Benn and sit in the pocket with him. You know, not all the fight, but multiple times to reestablish that it was his fight, to slow Conor Benn down, to back him off and take center of the ring again. He had to do a little bit of that. So this time around, will we see much different from Eubank? I just don't know that there's much different he can bring. Yeah, he can box you on the front foot, box you on the back foot, sit down in the pocket, but I think that's what he kind of already did the first time around. Again, maybe more defensive, we'll see. But I'm going to be honest with you guys, when I think about this fight, way too early, because again, we're about 3 months away, the same factors that worried you in the first fight for Chris Eubank Jr., even though he won, are going to be the same ones that worry you again in this rematch. I think out of the two of them, yeah, I mean, Conor Benn going to 160 is not his natural weight class. He shouldn't be there either. But out of the two of them, the person that's going to be more compromised at that weight is probably Chris Eubank Jr. Not even probably, is Chris Eubank Jr. because of, again, the amount of weight he's cutting and the rehydration clause. It's hard to put weight on, for sure. But depriving yourself of water and cutting weight and then depriving yourself for water longer, dehydrating yourself, you know, it's just not. I mean, we saw he's probably getting in trouble with the British Boxing Board of Control for the sauna suit and him showing how the weight cut affected him. It's one of the worst practices in combat sports. I've said it for so long now, but it's just, it is what it is. Weight cutting is definitely a deterrent, more so, I think, especially in this matchup, because I don't see Chris Eubank having the power to do much in terms of shaking Conor Benn. At least we didn't see that in the first fight. I think he's the one that's going up against the 8-ball again more than Conor Benn. I think he's sacrificing more here. But with that being said, this is why I think, and again, way too early prediction, I'm going to go Conor Benn again. I picked him in the first fight, and again, he was moments away from having some big-time success, and he hurt Chris Eubank Jr. with a couple of punches there, but for the most part, Eubank Jr. ran away with it, and he outboxed him. And Conor Benn, I thought, didn't have a solid approach to landing his big-time power, because it was all power shots. It was all haymakers for the entirety of the fight. There was no speed and defense transition. There was no let me take some speed off of this one and use it as a rangefinder and then ba-bam and speed it back up and add some power to it. It was just hammers. And I think he knows that in a rematch, if he can do a little bit different, if he can make some adjustments to his game and keep that same tenacity and keep that same power and keep that same ferociousness forward and trying to take center of the ring and take the fight to Chris Eubank Jr., I think he's got a great chance of winning this fight. And I'm going to pick him to win this fight here. I don't know. I just think there's more opportunity for him to grow. He is the younger fighter, less experienced, but that fight gave him a ton of experience. And now he knows the size isn't a big deal, and it's not something where he's overmatched size-wise. Yeah, Chris Eubank Jr. can take some of his punches better than a 147-pounder could, but he still rocked him with big-time shots. And again, I just think a tweak in how he approaches the offense and a bit of more head movement defense, a bit more slipping punches and countering off versus trading in the pocket for Conor Benn will lead him to the promised land here. And I just think there's too many things that Chris Eubank Jr., he's up against the 8-ball with. The weight cut, the age, rehydration, the damage from the first fight. He took some real damage. Both guys did, but it looked like Chris Eubank Jr. took more damage. I mean, the good thing for Eubank Jr. is that he's felt probably the most that he could probably feel as far as power from Conor Benn. He's felt what it's like to get hit with a real flush shot. I mean, he got clipped a couple different times. So he knows kind of what to look out for. And again, he may fight a more defensive, safe fight this time around, but I'm leaning Conor Benn, and I know people aren't going to like that pick, but I just think there's too many things going against Chris Eubank Jr. in this rematch. And Conor Benn has some stuff going against him too, I guess, with the weight, but everything else, the youth, the speed, the power, he has that. He just needs to be able to box a little better, and that's the big question of how this fight will go, because the boxing experience and the technical skill right now clearly go to Chris Eubank Jr. But I do think Conor Benn can make up a little bit of that gap and fight a bit of a smarter fight this time around. That's just my initial thoughts on the fight. I do wonder how this is going to go. You know, they both still don't like each other. Mutual respect from the first fight. And the first fight was such a banger. I don't know how easy it's going to be for the second fight to live up to it. Like, it's going to be really difficult to replicate that night, the moment. Here comes Chris Eubank Sr. He's in the corner after being against the fight for months and months, and that whole thing. And again, the fathers of the two sons being there. History repeats itself, that whole deal. I don't know if the hype is going to deliver like it did in the first fight, but if it comes anywhere close and they just have another good scrap, then this is well worth it for the fans. Again, a massive risk for both fighters because they're fighting at weights they normally shouldn't be at anymore. And I do wonder how Chris Eubank Sr. sees this. Ultimately, he came around and was there on fight night. Whether you want to believe that was because it was a work or because he just wanted to be there for his son or whatever, right? He was there. But this time, they've knowingly done the first one. What does he think about this one, right? And I know Nigel Benn will be there for Conor. We know that. But yeah, when I talked to Conor when we were in New York, he was dead set on doing the rematch, and it was like there was no doubt in his mind that he was going to win it. And then he also had some other ideas for 147, so it has to be now. For Conor Benn, for Chris Eubank Jr., and for this rematch, it has to be now because, again, Eubank Jr. is getting older. Conor Benn needs to get his 147 career back on track. He needs to go back down and really, if he wants to be a world champ, get more experience down there against top-level guys. But if they were going to do it, now is the time. You couldn't really wait till the end of the year because then you're really starting to put a distance between both guys and what they're trying to do in their respective careers. But listen, this one's going to be controversial. I'm not going to lie to you and say that there's not disadvantages on both sides and that it is a bit of an odd fight for both guys, but it was the first time and it created match. I'm also not going to lie and say I'm not excited for this because I am excited for it. I'm sorry. I do want to watch a rematch between the two. Even though we did get a definitive first fight, it was a good back and forth, and Conor Benn did show a good fight. Chris Eubank Jr. did everything he did to put Ben back in his spot and showcase his ability. I just think this time around it's going to be a different story because I just think this time around Conor Benn's going to win it. Again, too early predictions, and I may flip-flop, but for now, I'm holding steady. I think Conor gets him this time around for the youth, for the speed and power, for now the experience of being in there at that weight against Chris Eubank Jr. I think he has more ways to get better and less things to overcome than Chris Eubank Jr. to get this one done in the second time around. I don't know if that sets up a trilogy. I have no idea, but I do want to see this fight. I am excited for this fight. It is back. Chris Eubank Jr., Conor Benn, the rematch. And it's going to be in Tottenham Stadium again, which the turnout was incredible for last time. I was there live myself and my guy True Geordie. So I don't know exactly how that'll look this time around. I don't know what the undercard is going to look like this time around, but they had a great one in the first, especially my boy Vidal Riley. Can he get on that undercard and get his fight again in his home stadium in Tottenham? I have no idea. And also, who wins? I think the weight will be 160. I don't know for sure. And Chris Eubank Sr., will he be there? Nigel, the whole thing. Listen, I only have questions right now, but we do have one answer, and that is the rematch is official. What do you think about this fight? Let me know down below. And as far as who wins on the night, don't have those answers either, but guess we'll find out.